the A-Wing, the B-Wing, Millennium Falcon, Y-Wing, X-Wing, Naboo Starfighter, and TIE Fighter are just some of the ships that we think about when it comes to Star Wars. But what would happen if we combined all of these ships' best aspects and created just one ship? What would it look like? Hey everybody, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderlycone, and in this episode, we're going to be building the Nebula Scout from our friends over at Metal Time. And these guys have created something quite unique. When I actually originally looked at this on their Kickstarter, I thought it was a ship from some kind of sci-fi series that I've never seen before. But upon further inspection, I found out that this was a creation of the Metal Time team to honor the classic series of Star Wars. And I gotta say, it looks pretty cool, especially with that LED strip inside. But when you combine all of these different details, there's a couple of questions that come up. Like, how do all of these details go together? What are the tricky bits? And does that LED strip work? These are all great questions. We're going to get the answers. Let's get down to the workbench and open up our package. And boom, just like that, we begin building the Nebula Scout from Metal Time. And the first thing you might notice is we didn't use the whole sequence of us cutting out all of our parts. Unfortunately, I lost that, but the rest of the build here is quite intact. And before we get too far along, it's a good idea that we look at our tools, starting off with the most important tool I think we can have in our arsenal, some nippers. These are great for cutting out all of our pieces and ensuring that we leave a little bit of metal as possible on our parts. And of course, once we're done cutting out all of our pieces, we're going to need to clean them up. And the way we clean them up is with a tool that comes inside the kit, a rasp. This rasp is super important because we're going to go over all of the pieces that we have in this kit and just make sure they're nice and clean and they don't have any jagged edges. Jagged edges can get in the way of some of our moving parts, and although this build doesn't have any moving parts, it's still a good idea to make sure they're nice and clean so that everything goes together correctly. The next tool I'm going to recommend is a pair of pliers. These ones here come inside of your kit, and I'll be honest with you, these are my favorite tools right now to build 3D metal models. They allow you to be able to bend some of the smallest pieces very accurately, and the amount of control that you have with them is truly unmatched. You could also use a pair of tweezers, which would be very good, but you have to make sure that they are nice and strong. Otherwise, they will bend instead of the part that you're trying to bend. Yeah, pliers are really your best option here. To get some more of our cylindrical pieces or even some of our more dome shapes, I recommend a dapping set or a hand mandrel that might look like this. If I can get that out there, where is it? There we go, like this. These two tools here are great for some of our cylindrical shaped pieces, but with our dapping set, we can also use it to dome some of our pieces or get some concave shaping if it's so needed. The dapping set is great for our hull, but you can also use your thumbs and pliers if you so need to. Now, these are just our quick recommendations, and you really don't need anything but what comes in the kit to build the Nebula Scout. But of course, having these extra tools will make your life a lot easier. All right, now that we've looked at our tools, let's go ahead and get into the build. First up, pages 4 through 6. This is where we begin work on our LED lights. And as you can see here, I was pretty excited about this part. All we need to do is just wrap the LEDs around the center and then feed our wires through. And this whole part is actually quite simple and straightforward in the instructions. Where I ran into issues was a little bit later on when we're attaching the battery pack on. Unfortunately, my wires didn't have the connector that was supposed to be there, so I had to cut the other connector off the other side of the wire and then connect them the old school way. Now, I did mine quick and dirty. You'll see me do that later on, but of course, it's always important to make sure that you use proper electrical safety and put some shrink wrap on there so you don't have any possibility of shorts or make it a little tiny fire hazard for yourself. Don't be me, be better. See you in a minute. Welcome to the cockpit of the Nebula Scout! And as you've seen so far, it's quite important to make sure that all of our bends are done as sharply as possible, getting right up to that wall before bending any of the metal. The reason for this is we want everything to look nice and sharp. We don't want it to have any kind of loosey-goosey pieces here or some misshapen bits. This will make the model look kind of silly in the end. So make sure that when you're going through all of these pieces, you take your time and maybe match them up to the instructions to ensure that you have all the angles correct. Again, when it comes to putting our pieces together, if you find yourself kind of moving the tabs over a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, you're most likely off. So just take the whole part and shape it again, and you'll find that everything should click together quite well. The Metal Time team here does some great work with their tolerances, so if something doesn't work, it's you, unfortunately, not the model. But that being said though, high tolerances, trying to slide these little side bits here on, yeah, those guys right there might be a little bit challenging. Just again, make sure that your part is perfectly bent before attempting to put it onto the model. Otherwise, you'll have a whole bunch of scratches and it won't look good. Heed the warning. Our side details on page 12. These look quite simple, but trying to get those little edges there lined up just perfectly is a little bit of a battle. So if you struggle here, don't worry, I did too. You will get it with some patience. Just make sure you get the top part in first and then work the outer edge. I found that that was kind of the best strategy to get this done, and you'll see me cut a few times here, and it's because it was just taking way too long. So just again, if you struggle here, yeah, I did too. It is a little bit hard, but don't worry. Start with a top detail, work your way down, and everything will work out just fine. Yeah, right here you might find these little edge pieces to be a little flippy floppy. If you find that and it's getting on your nerves, go ahead and twist the tabs here instead of bending them. That way they stay in place. And then when you put the top on, you go back, untwist, and bend them properly. Just a quick little tip there if that's bothering you. Page 19. Putting our little top piece on here can be quite tricky, and that's because of where the tabs are all located across the model. My suggestion is to start with the bottom right-hand corner and then work your way along the model. This way, you're ensuring that every tab is going in the right place. Trying to fish the tabs into the right joint can be complicated here because of the angles that you're working with. But if you've bent everything, like I said earlier, to the correct dimensions, for the most part, all the tabs should line up right away. I did have a little bit of a fight here, and that's just because, again, trying to get everything in the right spot is difficult. But once you work through it a little bit and do a little shimmy here and there, you'll find that everything will go into place and you'll be ready to move on to your battery. Page 21 in our pedals. This looks quite simple, but it's actually easy to warp all of these little pedals here. My suggestion is to go with your pliers right up to the edge and ensure that you have more than about 80% of the part inside of your tweezers before bending any of them into shape. Once you have one in the kind of right area that you think is correct, you can bend all of the other ones to that same edge, and everything should come out nice and straight. If you need to make a small correction, it should be quite simple to do by kind of holding it like this and doing a little bit of a curl with your hand. It will kind of bring all of the tabs together, but don't do too much of that because you will end up warping the entire part. Yes, it's a game of give and take, and how can the whole thing work out is really up to you. But if you're patient, it should work out in your favor. Finally, page 25 with our aforementioned wiring issue. As you can see here, we only have one connector. So what we need to do is actually cut off the connector and connect these two pieces bare wire. Now, in my case here, I was just trying to make sure everything works. So I put everything together, turned it on, and yay, it worked. I took it apart and then put the heat shrink onto this. Best practices, if you're only going to build this once, I highly recommend making sure this is safe if you don't have a connector. If yours has a connector, you don't have this problem. But if you don't have a connector, you're going to need to make this mod. And again, I highly recommend some heat shrink here just to avoid any kind of fire hazard or shocking hazard that might come. Yes, small voltages are involved and you might not have that big of an issue, but it's still best practice to ensure that your connections are best as possible. And that one right there is definitely not the greatest. See you on the outside. And boom, there we have it, the Nebula Scout in all of its glory. This build was a lot of fun to put together, and quite simple too. There was only one part that kind of gave me a hard time, and that was the little hexagon sides right here. You just kind of had to work so many pieces at once, and trying to do that was, again, tricky. But after a little bit of fiddling, we had no trouble putting the rest of this build together. And I think all the different aspects here look really cool. The LED lights was the other part that didn't kind of work out in this build. I mean, the LED lights do work in it, but the little parts that connect together, I mean, having one connector missing means I had to splice the wire, and my knowledge on these kinds of electronics is still at the very early stages. I need to do a lot more research into that. I know all about time technology, but when it comes to these little kind of smaller electronics of the 2024s, yeah, there's some things I definitely need to brush up on. But overall, again, this build was a lot of fun to put together, and I would highly recommend this for anyone out there that was considering getting this build. It's a very interesting looking model, and I think that it will look great in any collection. All right, Groovers, that brings us to the end of our show. I had a great time building the Nebula Scout with you, and if you guys had a good time, go ahead and press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of really cool content coming out in the future, and I would love to have you there. Thank you to Metal Time for sending me this awesome Nebula Scout to build with you. These guys are awesome to work with. They allow me to be 100% honest with my reviews, and also give us a really cool coupon code along the bottom there that will save you money and support the channel. It's a really cool thing. Until next time, keep building. Okay, now it's time to go fly this thing. I wonder how fast it will actually go.